The sister of a January 6th defendant is asking the court to go easy on her brother, exercise a little bit of leniency. According to CBS News reporter Scott MacFarlane, the man's sister said that he did not know what he was doing. Oh no. And therefore, the court should take it easy on him. Oh, well, ignorance of the law, right? Ignorance of a crime. I had no idea that I was doing crime, officer. Okay, well, I'm sure that's going to make all the difference. Yes. Nonetheless, I'm going to give you her statement there. She said, I'm asking the court to take into account that on this day, he came to what he thought was just a rally. As stupid as this sounds, he did not knowingly know he was committing a crime. I did not knowingly know. Yeah, he didn't knowingly know. So just let him go. He didn't, I mean, he did something wrong, but he didn't know he did something wrong. So, just ignorance, right? That's not how that works. That's not how that works. So now, she also said this. He was even being waved in by police officers. So now that's something I've talked about that on the show. I originally believed that's what had actually happened. I showed you the video of it. Now, later on, of course, we realized that, well, no, that's not quite what happened. There's a little bit more nuance on that, a little bit more detail on this. And it actually even comes from the reporter who was literally on the ground. But we'll get to that. But first, yes, I believed it because we know that generally police are, well, they tend to be more lenient on white protesters, on white right-wingers. And so we also know, and I've showed you this as well, where there were cops that took selfies with rioters. Now, that said, not all the police were friendly towards the crowd. Obviously, the officer that was forced to shoot Ashley Babbitt, not exactly friendly, right, to her. Now, you had officers that were also beaten by the crowd. Brian Sicknick was one of them. And according to one of the journalists that was on the ground, Marcus Diapola, who filmed the video of police retreating from a barricade, said this, quote, "They definitely didn't just open the barriers. The pro-Trump rioters made a fist like they were going to punch the cops, which is why I started recording. Then police backed off the barricades." Now, I don't know, maybe I'm going too far to say this, but if it had been black people, they wouldn't have backed off. I'm just putting that out there. But Diapola said this, quote, "They were completely outnumbered. There wouldn't have been any point in fighting." He estimated that the officers were outnumbered 100 to 1, with only about 30 officers spread out between these three entrances on that side of the Capitol, compared with thousands of protesters. About 8,000, actually. So their defense was, hey, look, it was the police's fault. They waved us in. They invited us in. They welcomed us. We didn't know it was wrong when we were welcomed in. Now it turns out to be, again, not true. Now, that does not mean that the police are innocent in this. No. For one, despite evidence, they did not consider the crowd a threat, even though they were warned days in advance that there was a very large potential for violence. They even had chat logs from right-wing sites saying, we're going to bring the guns. They were talking about doing violence, but no. They're right-wingers. Of course, they're never going to, no, they'd never do anything to us. We're police. They love police. Now, when it broke out, officers were instructed by their leaders to not use their most aggressive tactics, to hold off the mob or equipment. They were told to hold back, to engage with very soft hands, to my words. And again, they didn't receive backup from the National Guard for about 3 hours. Now, that said, she continues, did he get wrapped up in the moment? Yes, he did. But he did not vandalize anything or hurt anyone. Once he was in there, he said he thought better of it and left on his own. When he realized he was in the wrong, he took accountability for his actions. Do you understand what the word accountability means? You were trespassing. And so, I mean, trespassing, serious enough charge. Okay. Criminal trespassing, trying to disrupt an official proceeding. That's what a lot of these were, right? And as such, a lot of these charges basically lead to maybe a little bit of jail time, a week, couple weeks, or probation, right? Essentially. That would be accountability if you were to get that. But you can't claim that you didn't know the crime that you were doing was the crime. That's not how it works. You can't get out of the consequences for doing the crime because you claim that you didn't know that what you were doing was crime. Now, here's what's funny about this. So I want to liken this to the sheep defense. Let me explain what that means. MacFarlane notes the refrain from the January 6th defendant is to say that they were caught up in the moment, blindly following the crowd. Other quotes he observed include momentary lapses in good judgment and swept away moment, according to an attorney for defendant Verdon Nally of Georgia. Now, isn't this a bit ironic? These are the people who call everyone else a sheep for, you blindly followed the mainstream media that showed that Joe Biden won when he didn't actually win. No, it turns out those people were the sheep that were blindly swept up in their own mob and ended up, of course, doing crime. They were the mob, and they fell into what is considered or what is called mob mentality. That is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, by the way, as a large and disorderly crowd of people, especially one bent on riotous or destructive action. That sounds a lot like, that sounds a lot like the Capitol rioters right there. They were not tourists. They were not patriots. They were a mob doing mob shit. And as a result, they should accept the consequences of their actions. They did the crime. It's time they have some accountability for it.